There was somebody waiting, yes? Okay, AP Bio students in 6th period. This is 6th period, yes? Yes. Right. How many people have subscribed to my YouTube channel? Just my chemistry students from last year. So here's the deal, guys. I'm really close to being a mega influencer. I think if all of my students sign up this year, subscribe to my channel, I'll reach status mega influencer. That's right. By the end of this week, I could top 200 subscribers. I'm pretty sure that's what mega influencer is. All kidding aside, I do post lots of helpful videos that will really, really help. If you were in my chemistry class, you saw pretty much just the classes last year with a couple of extra videos about how to do certain equations or whatever. AP Bio, there's a lot more to it. So I post lots of things. The review session for chi-squared this morning is already posted to my YouTube channel. So if you need help, please look there. Let's do some admin stuff. You have a safety quiz that's due on Schoology tomorrow. What happens if you don't get it done by 9 a.m. tomorrow?
0. You can't do the lab.
What is the penalty for not doing something formative? 10 points per day.
Yeah.
10 points per day. So please do the safety quiz. Is the safety quiz hard? No. How many people are done with it? Piece of cake, right? Everybody else get done with it. The other thing that needs to be done tomorrow, you cannot come to the lab, is this lab safety. Tomorrow when you come in, there will be a list of names here that if you don't have your lab safety sheet turned in, you may not go into the lab and do our very first, most exciting and dangerous experiment. That's why I need to make sure you're safe. We're going to be playing with arguably the most dangerous chemical on Earth. Water. So I got to make sure you're safe. So you got to sign this thing, have your parents sign it, get it turned in digitally, right? I've had lots of people try to hand them to me today. Don't hand me pieces of paper. Have it signed, take a picture of it, convert that picture to a PDF, submit that PDF through Schoology. Is everybody on board with that? Okay, it seems like everybody is. Good. And those have to be done by tomorrow. Your chi-square activity is due tomorrow morning. So if you're still lost on it, watch the video. It's about a half hour long. You can do it at double speed. You can do it at half speed. I don't care. Whatever you need to learn it. You could even come see me tomorrow morning before school. I should have a little bit of time to help. If you've watched the video and still can't do it, please come see me. When you turn it in, the only thing you're turning in is questions 14 through 16. Questions on that? Monday, you're going to have a quiz. Here's how we get ready for this quiz. Here's how I would recommend you get ready for this quiz. This is your You Must Apply sheet. Do you all have this? Okay, so on this, it's on Schoology. It's one of the top things in the material. So you can print it out, bring it to class. When we cover something, you highlight it in yellow. So on Tuesday, we covered chi-squared. That's bullet 1, sub-bullet 1. Yesterday, we covered chemistry, which is bullet 2, sub-bullet, well, at least 1, 2, 3. Not so much 4. We're going to do that today. We're going to do 5 next week. And we did 6. So those should be all in yellow, right? Once you believe that you can answer any summative or formative questions on those topics, you take your blue highlighter, go over the yellow highlighter, yellow and blue make green, green means go, you're ready for the quiz. All right, so the quiz will cover bullets 1, 2, and 3 on Monday. And only a little bit of 1. The quiz is just on chi-squared. Tomorrow, we're going to do standard deviation, and we're going to do standard error of the mean, and we're going to do error bars. Those are not on the quiz. Everybody comfortable with what's coming on Monday?
Just chi-squared?
Chi-squared, water, chemistry. I don't know who asked. Okay. Water, chemistry, chi-squared. That's actually what I call it. Water, chemistry, and chi. Good? All right. Tomorrow's activity. It would be a really good idea if you were to go to Schoology, open the assignment that's due on Monday. Actually, it's not due Monday. Whenever it's due, open up the Word document and read it. Have a really good idea of what we're going to do in here before you show up. I designed these things to take about 35 to 40 minutes. If you need 10 minutes to figure out what you're doing, you're going to get almost to the end and be really mad and frustrated. Then this will be a frustrating experience, not an enhancing experience. The reason we do these experiments is to make us understand the concepts better. That's the idea. If all they're doing is making you mad, then we're not getting the most bang for our buck. Questions on what I would expect you to do to get ready for an experiment? Okay. In the instructions, it says we're going to use computers and do it in Excel. I've changed that. I changed it today at lunch, actually. We're going to try to use this right here for all of your mathematical needs. Your TI-84. You know why I'm doing that?
Get us used to it.
And you get this on the final. Right? If you're very used to what this can do for you, you could maybe finagle your way through a tricky part on the final. If you're used to Excel, like I am, I do everything in Excel, then you might run into problems. Okay, I think that takes us through all of that. There is a Quizlet that's due tomorrow as well. Quizlet's just a bunch of definitions. Please use sciencey definitions. Quizlet will put in definitions for you. I don't recommend it. All right, organic. Had that conversation, maybe? Did we talk about organic? Did we talk about the non-science world taking our science words and changing the definitions? Electrolytes was one, right?
That's the thing. I think it's the only one we went through.
How many people shop in the organic section of the grocery store? What's organic mean? At the grocery store, what's organic mean?
Not processed or something?
Not processed.
No pesticides.
No pesticides.
Also no pesticides.
There's one more thing people always say.
GMO.
Yeah, non-GMO, right? That's not at all what organic means. You know what organic means? Made primarily of carbon and hydrogen. Yes. So by that definition, by the real definition, motor oil is organic. But you won't find that in the organic section of the grocery store. Okay, AP Classroom. There are now 31 of you in this class, although there seems to be 3 people missing. I'll figure out who they are in a second. Your class code is, if you are not one of the people signed up for this class, write this down, 7P2 Whiskey Zulu Lima. Sorry, WZL. 7P2 WZL. Make sure you sign up for this class. I will not go through and figure out who the 1 or 2 or 3 people who are not signed up are. A week from this coming Monday, you will have a 50-point assignment in AP Classroom. If you don't do it, we'll find out who's not signed up then. If you're having trouble signing up, please come see me and I can help. Questions on any of that admin stuff? How many people did the homework? Okay, that's a pretty good number. I like that. Were there any questions on these 10 questions?
I couldn't find the molarity one.
So that's a good point. These questions are a holdover from last year's text. I got a new textbook. I haven't had time to go through and make sure all of the questions still line up. Same question about molarity?
On Schoology, there was like a place for submitting these. Are we supposed to do that?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Occasionally I mess up, and some of them, like 6th period, will have a submit button in it because Schoology is really weird. When I transfer it over, it doesn't transfer it exactly. Sometimes it gives a submit button. The reading and questions are never to be turned in. That goes in your journaling notebook. Keep it at home. That's for you. That's to start you framing what's important in this section. After you do the reading and questions, go through the notes. Now you're framing what's important based on the notes we're going to talk about the following day. There will not be time for you to write down every word on my slides today. We probably won't even make it to the end. We might not make it to PH. Molarity.
Which question is that? What is molarity? Molarity is the number of moles of a substance per liter of solution. In biology, that liter of solution is always water. So it's number of moles of something per liter of water. It's a measure of concentration. Any other questions on these homework questions? All right, good. So why are we studying water? Why are we going to take the next 36 or 7 minutes or so and talk about water? What's important about water? As far as we know, as far as we can conceive, it is not possible to have life without water. There are some biologists who have hypothesized non-aqueous life, like astrobiologists trying to assume life on other planets where there is no water. How would it survive? How could it survive? What could its processes be? Most of these scientists are laughed out of their profession. Does anybody know who Andy Weir is? Andy Weir is hands down my favorite author. Has anybody seen the movie The Martian? Matt Damon goes to Mars and his buddies leave him behind. Yes? All right, that was written by Andy Weir. A much better book of his is called Project Hail Mary. It is my favorite book of all time, and I read lots of books. That is my favorite book of all time. It is a science fiction novel that I'm not going to spoil it because it's easily spoiled. They have a few copies of it down in the library, although I've already told 4th and 5th period, so they might have already gotten them. I highly recommend this book. If you're going to read it soon because the movie comes out next spring. And you know what happens when they make the movie. They ruin it. So please read that book. It's amazing. It's my favorite book of all time. But in it, one of the characters is one of those scientists who hypothesized non-aqueous life. As far as we know, it can't exist. It doesn't exist. Because life requires some of the magical powers of water. At least our life does. Any life that we can conceive requires these magical powers of water. And we're going to talk about those 4 magical powers today. They're not magical at all. I just like to call them magical. And we're going to do that by starting at the chemistry. All right, we're going to understand what does polarity mean. Once we understand what polarity means, we'll understand how it gets us to hydrogen bonding. And what hydrogen bonding is and what hydrogen bonding isn't. And then we're going to talk about these magical powers. One is high specific heat. One is stickiness. Don't use that on the AP exam. They won't give you points for stickiness. I'll give you the real words in a minute. The ability to dissolve, which some people call the universal solvent, and the fact that ice is less dense than water. So let's take a jaunt through these. Oh yeah, maybe we'll get to pH. Depends how quickly I talk and how quickly you answer my questions and we have a discussion. If it takes like 3 minutes to answer one question, we're not going to make it to pH. Okay. So water is a polar molecule. Who can tell me what polar means? Go.
When there's a slightly charged region.
Okay, slightly charged region. Anybody want to expand on that just a little bit? Or a lot? Go for it.
The covalent bonds, one atom is slightly positive and the other slightly negative.
Okay, so it's not one slightly charged region, it's 2 oppositely slightly charged regions. I'm not sure if that's grammatically correct, but that's the way I'm saying it. So I got 2, a positive and a negative. At least 2, right? Because I could have more than that, and we're going to see that in a second. So polar in a molecule means I have positives at one end and negatives at the other. Okay, that's a really important concept. This is an okay example. It's a little bit problematic. I don't love this part. Let's see if this works for me.
I prefer to draw it like this. Because if I have two positives and two negatives, how many possible attachment points does this molecule of water have? Say it again. It's got 4, right? This is something I'll have you do tomorrow. So this, I'm going to pass this around. This is my model of water. And you can see they're just magnets. This polarity isn't magnets. But this model of magnets gives us a really good understanding of what's going on. So kind of toy with that. You can see that it has 4. So for those of you who were Vesper champions last year in chemistry, if you took chemistry last year, if I have 4 equal areas or 4 attachment points and they're spread out equally, what shape do I have? Tetrahedral. What other life important chemical is tetrahedral? Carbon. There's got to be something to this. I really haven't figured all this out yet, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that water with its tetrahedral shape when it comes to hydrogen bonding and carbon with its tetrahedral shape, it's very similar. There's got to be something to that. Maybe that's the secret of life. I don't know yet. Maybe that's why silicon doesn't work. I don't know. So when we said they have charged areas, nonpolar molecules don't have any charged areas. There's no charged areas in these nonpolar molecules. Sort of. For purposes of AP Bio, that's how we're going to consider it. Polar has charged areas, nonpolar has non-charged areas. Do you have all 4 there still?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Try not to spill that water. And this allows us to form hydrogen bonds. That's hilarious, by the way. Well, all right, just funny to me.
What's funny?
Don't spill the water. She spilled water all over yourself.
Oh.
They're less funny when I have to explain them. Okay, so let's dig down into polarity. What does polarity mean? We said water is a polar molecule, and you guys had a pretty good grasp of polar molecule means I have a positive area and a negative area, at least one of each, right? What is polarity? Not molecular polarity, but polarity. What is that? Wasn't this one of all my questions?
Opposite.
So good, the idea of poles means a positive and a negative or opposite regions, right? What does it mean when we're talking about a polar covalent bond?
They're not shared equally.
Okay, let's be a little more precise in our language right now. I've got they're not shared equally.
The electrons.
Electrons in a covalent bond are not shared equally. We know there's 2 types of bonds, right? Ionic and covalent. In a covalent bond, I'm sharing electrons. In a polar covalent bond, I'm sharing electrons, but I'm not sharing them equally. I think this video is a really good visual representation of that concept. Make sure I can get this right. There might be a commercial in the middle of this. Nope, no commercial. What's that?
How come some insects are able to walk on the surface of a pond, but you quickly sink to the bottom when you try to walk on water? And why do lakes freeze from the top down in winter? In a word, the answer to all of these questions is polarity. Water is a simple molecule made up of 1 oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms, but it is essential to life. In fact, water makes up approximately 60% of the adult human being's body weight. The polarity within those water molecules gives this common substance the properties that make it unique and life-sustaining. Polarity refers to the unequal sharing of electrons within a molecule. For water, the bonding between the oxygen atom and 2 hydrogen atoms within a single water molecule is like a tug of war between a big, strong football player and a cute little toddler. Oxygen is a larger atom with more protons in its nucleus than hydrogen. These positive charges are like a person's physical strength. They are able to attract the negatively charged electrons in the bond, just like a strong individual is able to overpower a weaker individual in a tug of war. So, oxygen is able to attract more than its fair share of electrons. Because hydrogen is smaller and has less strength, or fewer protons, it loses a tug of war and attracts fewer than its fair share of electrons. So the oxygen in water behaves as though it's negative, and the hydrogens behave as though they're positive.
Okay, I want to pause it there. What she just said there at the end is really important. For the purposes of our course, we're going to kind of pretend that I have a positive and a negative part of this. I actually have 2 positives and 2 negatives, right? That's not true. They act as if they're positive and act as if they're negative. These are weaker positive and negatives than when I have an ionic compound that dissociates in water. When I have salt, sodium chloride, this is sodium. It has a full positive charge. This is stronger than the positive that's on the hydrogen. This is chlorine, chloride ion. It has a full negative charge. It is stronger than the charge that's on the oxygen. So they're not the same thing. But we're going to talk about them as if they are a lot of times in here. And that's probably close enough for us to gain understanding at the freshman level. There's a lot of things that we're going to say in here that I'm going to say at the freshman level, this is the answer. Or this is what we believe at the freshman level. It's because we don't have a lot of the understanding we need of probabilities and calculus and a whole bunch of other things, thermodynamics, to really understand what's really going on. So I'll let you know this is true at the freshman level, which means when you go on to another course, they're going to expand upon that. Just like in middle school when you learn that chemical changes can't be undone, only physical changes can be undone. Then you got to high school and you realize chemical reactions go forward and backward. Right? So it's going to happen like that. And I'll try to do my best to let you know which things are, yes, this is a pretty held scientific belief, or this is something that's true at the freshman level. And I'll try to be pretty clear on that. Polarity, unequal sharing of electrons. Why is there an unequal sharing of electrons?
Isn't it because nitrogen is, or not nitrogen, oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen?
Right, it's differences in electronegativity. It doesn't only happen in oxygen and hydrogen. We have hydrogen bonding in compounds that have nitrogen and fluorine. And we're going to see some of that next week. Okay, and that leads to hydrogen bonding. I'm going to play the video.
The atoms that make up a water molecule are in a constant tug-of-war over their shared electrons. Oxygen exerts a far stronger pull on the shared electrons than does hydrogen, and so the electrons spend more of their time closer to the oxygen atom. Because of this unequal sharing of electrons, the oxygen atom in a water molecule actually has a slight negative charge, and each hydrogen atom has a slight positive charge, even though the water molecule as a whole is neutral. Because of the unequal sharing of electrons and the resulting positive and negative poles, a water molecule is said to be polar. The polarity of water molecules causes them to be attracted to each other. Since the positively charged atom involved in this special type of attraction is always a hydrogen atom, this kind of bond between molecules is called a hydrogen bond.
Is it a bond?
Each water molecule can hydrogen bond to 4 other water molecules. A hydrogen bond is weak and lasts only a tiny fraction of a second, but it takes a lot of energy to overcome the combined attraction of many hydrogen bonds.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack in there. So first, let's think about it in water. All right, we said, first she talked about hydrogen bonds as if they were bonds, and we know that they can't be, because there's only 2 types of bonds, ionic and covalent. But she did say these were special attractions. She said there's 4 around each one, up to 4, and she said they last for a short amount of time. That's true and it's not true, and I'll show you in a second where it's definitely true. I'll even give you the amount of time now. So these, if I have water, and I filled up a cup of water earlier, so here's my cup of water. And in here is a bunch of water molecules, and they're all bouncing around each other. These are at room temperature. So you can see them. You can see all the different molecules of water in there. No, you can't. You can't see molecules of water. But they are bouncing off of each other, and these hydrogen bonds are changing every nanosecond. To give you some context, that's 1 billion times a second these change. And you can kind of see in that video where it was like connected to this one, I'm connected to this one, right? I think they showed that. It might be the next video. You'll see hydrogen bonds changing. Okay, so they change a lot. And she said if there's a lot of hydrogen bonds, it can add stability, didn't she? Said something like that? Did anybody hear anything like that? Okay, at least one head said yes. Because this happens in stuff other than water. This is one of my favorite models that I use all the time. How many people had Miss Shedlock for biology? She loved this thing, didn't she? She made me love this thing. She bought it and was like, you need one of these. So now I use it all the time. This is why it's my favorite right here. Because when students get sleepy, I just do this. You're welcome, YouTube. All right, so this is a model of DNA. The reason I like this for what we're talking about today is most people think this is a molecule of DNA. It's not. This is two molecules of DNA. One on the top and one on the bottom. How are they connected? Who remembers DNA? No. I like the fact that you're contributing that. What's that? Yeah, how are AC and TG, AG, AT and CG connected? Hydrogen bonds, right? C and G have 3 hydrogen bonds, A and T have 2 hydrogen bonds. We'll learn that next week. So for every one of these base pairs, there's an average of 2.5 hydrogen bonds. Right? How long is your chromosome? How many bases in one chromosome? No. Hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. So there are hundreds of millions of hydrogen bonds holding these two separate molecules of DNA together. That's what keeps it together. And we'll learn down the line what comes in and breaks those hydrogen bonds. Which protein comes in and breaks the helix? Helicase, right? So we'll learn that later. But hydrogen bonds are what hold your DNA together. Are they covalent bonds? Nope. Are they easy to break? Sure. Can I break them all? No, there's too many. But it's not just in DNA, it's also in proteins. So before I got this thing all broken up, this is a sequence of amino acids. This looks okay. It's not too bad. Yeah, that's fine. All right, so here's my amino acid sequence, and these are going to interact with each other. I told you that it's not just oxygen and water, right? Or not just oxygen and hydrogen. The blue ones are a nitrogen. And on this nitrogen, there's a lone pair of electrons. And that lone pair of electrons in this nitrogen can hydrogen bond with this hydrogen over here. Or like that. Or the hydrogen on that nitrogen can hydrogen bond with this. What that'll do is add structure and shape to this molecule. And we'll learn more about this stuff next week, right? When we talk about the different macromolecules and their shapes and their structures and their functions. Okay, so because I have hydrogen bonds, water has 4 magical powers. So we went from electronegativity leads to bond polarity leads to molecular polarity in water leads to hydrogen bonding. Hydrogen bonding gives me 4 magic powers. If you've already taken notes, I added 1, 2 here because you saw it said 4 and there was only 3 there. Who got mad about that? I saw it this morning and I was like, what am I doing? Come on, Lauer, you're better than that. So I added the 4th one on here, universal solid. Okay, so the first one's high specific heat, what I call stickiness. Again, don't write stickiness on your AP exam. I'll teach you what the real words are in a minute. Ice floats and universal solid. Okay, let's talk about high specific heat. High specific heat is something that's super easy conceptually to teach in the north because they get it. Because when I grew up in upstate New York, it didn't matter how hot it was today. If it's May, my pool is freezing because it takes a long time for my pool to warm up after the winter. Like you're not getting in until June 15th. If you are, you're turning blue. But conversely,
In September, doesn't matter how cold it is today, my pool's still pretty warm because it takes a long time for my pool to cool down. That's because water resists a change in temperature. It resists it. Today we're going to learn why. That's the definition of specific heat capacity. It means how much energy it takes to raise 1 gram of a material 1 degree Celsius. But you don't need to know that definition. Okay. So water has lots of pockets to put energy. This is something that I explain to people a lot, and it takes a while to get it sometimes. We do need to take a quick jaunt back into chemistry, and if you were one of my chemistry students, you better not get any of these questions wrong. All right, think back to the KMT. Who remembers KMT? At least a few? Good? All right, what does the kinetic molecular theory say the definition of temperature is?
Average kinetic energy.
Average kinetic energy. So if I increase the average kinetic energy, I'm going to pretend this is my molecule. I have a whole mole of these things flying around my classroom. Right? If I increase the temperature in my classroom, what happens to these molecules? They speed up. Right? But that's only 1/3 of the story. That's the part we teach to high schoolers. They speed up. In reality, there's 2 other areas where they can increase their kinetic energy. So when it moves across the sky and bounces off the wall and hits the floor and hits the ceiling, that's called translational energy. It's moving through space. It's translating. There's another place I can increase the movement of this molecule. It's in rotational energy. So if I look, this molecule rotates around each of these bonds. This is a really good model for showing this, although you can't see it so well here. But if I pick up this, it's clearly evident that each one of these bonds I can rotate around. I can spin this whole thing around. See that? I can rotate around these bonds. All of them have rotational energy. So I can put energy in that rotation. So I've got translational energy as it's moving across the sky, and rotational energy as it's spinning around that bond. Here's the other one that's a little tricky, the 3rd place. You learned, I hope, in high school chemistry that this has a certain bond length, and we can measure that, right? But that's only the average bond length. In reality, that bond is like a spring. It squeezes and goes and squeezes and goes and squeezes and goes. So that is called vibrational energy, as these bonds squeeze and go and squeeze and go. So I've got 3 places in this molecule: translational energy, rotational energy, and vibrational energy. So I can put energy into all of those, but water's special. Because of hydrogen bonding, I have a 4th place to put the energy. And that 4th place to put the energy is what allows water to resist changes in temperature. So if somebody says, why does water have a high specific heat capacity? Now you can answer it using chemistry. Because it has 4 places to put the energy before it has to change temperature. Vibrational, rotational, translational, and hydrogen bonds. Does everybody understand? Okay. What does that mean to life? Well, this is why most humanity throughout the history of humanity has lived on the coast. Right? Because coastal regions have stable temperatures. Why? Because the ocean keeps it stable. Which places don't have stable temperatures?
Midwest.
Deserts.
The deserts. Right? Why? Because there's no water. How many people have ever lived in the desert? It's miserable, isn't it? How's it feel at night? Oh, the deserts I've been in, it's been amazingly cold at night and amazingly hot during the day. Like 55 degrees at night and 110 degrees during the day. Like 65 degree temperature difference. Brutal. Up until very recently, we didn't build any big cities in the desert because of this reason. Now we're overcoming all that because we're good at science, but most of humanity throughout the history of humanity has lived next to large bodies of water. We talked about your pool. Okay, so what does this mean for life in general? Who remembers the things that impact protein function? Enzyme function. Think all the way back to high school biology.
Temperature and pH, right? What happens if I turn the temperature up on a protein? What's that magic word? Starts with a D, ends with a natures.
Denaturalization.
Yeah, it denatures. If I turn the temperature up on a protein, it denatures. So it's probably a good thing for your proteins that you're made of 70% water, or 60% as my slide says. Right? Because your body resists changes to temperature. If it got a little warm outside and your body shot up in temperature, what would happen to all your proteins?
Denature.
They'd denature. What would happen to you?
Teenager.
You'd die. You would die. You wouldn't denature. Your cell membranes would probably still stay together, but your proteins wouldn't function and you'd be dead. Everything you do and everything you are is done by proteins. If they don't work, you die. Well, there it is, 60% water. Our temperature doesn't fluctuate. And this works really well. How many weightlifters out there? How many runners out there? Okay, how many other athletes out there? Okay, good. When you are athleting, when you're out there conducting sports, especially weightlifting, what do you think the temperature in your muscles is?
High.
Yeah, maybe as high as 140 degrees. Why isn't your whole body 140 degrees? Because the rest of your water resists that change. Make sense?
Yeah. You gotta feel it if you're like super sore, like you're in your legs. You kind of feel like heat in your legs. I feel like I feel that sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll talk about this later in the year. One of my favorite guys to listen to, his name is Andrew Huberman. He's a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford. And he talks to a guy named Craig Heller. Dr. Craig Heller developed a way to cool down your muscles during athletic activity. And it's brilliant. We'll talk about it later in the year. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So athletes, I've got a cheat code for you. I used it this morning, actually, when I went for a very vigorous 1 mile run. Okay, we're going to skip this question. Good. Adhesion and cohesion. Stickiness. So stickiness is adhesion and cohesion. Water sticks to itself. Water sticks to other things. This is no different than the stuff you learned in high school. When you learned about adhesion and cohesion in high school, which biological system did you almost certainly learn about?
Capillary reaction.
Capillary action in which organism?
Trees.
Plants. Which part of the plant?
The stem.
Which part of the stem?
Inside.
Roots.
Inside. It starts with an X.
Xylem.
That's right, the xylem. You probably remember this picture right here. Yes. So the way this works, we got a few more minutes, good. I said water forms 4 hydrogen bonds, right? Which has that weird tetrahedral structure. So in adhesion, the water molecule sticks to the side of the xylem. And if you imagine the water molecule like a person that has a face like the Amoeba sisters drew for us here, you can imagine one hand holding the wall, one hand holding the water molecule above it, and both feet holding onto water molecules below. So when the one above me gets pulled up, I let go of the wall, I get pulled up, and I grab the wall again. And when I get pulled up, what do? I pull up the ones below me. That's how water gets pulled up the xylem. Your adhesion and cohesion, which when we put them together, it's called capillary action. Good, good, good. There's some cool videos in there. Water is a universal solvent. Okay. As the universal solvent, it can dissolve lots and lots of things. This is something that people don't really understand, although they should. Water has gases dissolved in it. So in this cup of water right here, everybody inhale. In that inhale was 78% nitrogen. That means there's gaseous nitrogen dissolved in this water. Every gas above this water is also dissolved in it. In that inhale was 22% oxygen, or about 22% oxygen. So in here is some amount of oxygen that's dissolved into the water. The temperature of the water changes how much can be dissolved in there. But for the most part, we've got oxygen in here. Right, so gases are dissolved in there. Ions are dissolved in there. Polar covalent compounds are dissolved in there. This creates a soup.
I like to call it life soup. You know what the biggest life soup on earth is? The ocean. Right? Everything that fish and aquatic organisms need to live is dissolved in the water. Everything they need. You have life soup in you. What's your greatest amount of life soup? Blood? Blood? You got blood flowing through you, right? I think it's somewhere around a gallon of blood or a half gallon of blood. One of those two. I don't remember which. All right, so you have blood, which all of the stuff you need for life is dissolved in your body. It's dissolved in your blood. Your oxygen gets dissolved into your blood and carried where it needs to go. Your carbon dioxide gets dissolved into your blood and carried out. Your glucose gets dissolved into your blood. How many people take supplements? Just me? Okay. How many people eat food? Okay, good. You're with me. When you eat food, you digest the food and it gets dissolved into your blood. And it gets carried where it needs to be used. Right? So all of that happens. It's dissolved into your blood because your blood is life soup. Your cells also have life soup. It's called cytoplasm. Oh, good. We got time. Oh, no. Oh, that's sad. I showed this video twice already today. It's one of my favorite videos to show. These French people, I think they're French, they're speaking French. They're on a sailboat and they go to the Arctic and they put their kids on this giant iceberg thing. It's probably 30 or 40 feet tall. And the kids start ice climbing on top of this iceberg. And then they realize that they put them on one side of a floating block that's top heavy. And it flips over and dumps them into the Arctic Ocean. Nobody died in the video, but they learned the hard way that ice floats. You get to learn the easy way that ice floats. Hopefully this video will play. This is why. Does anybody know why ice floats?
It's less dense than water.
Good, but why is it less dense than water?
Because
Right, but that's the definition of less dense, right? It expands. Why does it do this? This video does a real good job of showing us.
When the temperature is above 4 degrees C, hydrogen bonds are quickly broken. Because water molecules have kinetic energy, this means that the hydrogen bonds are not strong enough to hold the water molecules together. When the temperature drops below 4 C, the water molecules slow down enough to allow the hydrogen bonds to bind each other together. So the molecule structure is reformed by the hydrogen bonds. Being angular, water molecules cause empty spaces to appear
This image right
in the
here.
molecule structure, so that the volume increases during freezing. Now we have the answer to our first question. Ice.
That wasn't my first question. Does everybody understand that? As these things, these water molecules, imagine these magnets, I can squish them close to each other in my hand, right? But once I lock them in, there's going to be empty space. So I said hydrogen bonds change every nanosecond, right? No, it's frozen. Then they don't change at all. They're frozen. They're stuck. They don't change at all. That's what allows for all of that empty space in between them. I told you we wouldn't have time for pH. You can back up.